Welcome to Perusing's Appraisers on Purpose podcast. Our podcast showcases inspiring appraisers and professionals from the industry who are leaders in their field. How did they get to where they are? What have they learned along the way? What can we learn from them? Your host is real estate investor, entrepreneur, and appraiser, Michael Hobbs.
Welcome to another informative, engaging, and definitely exciting episode of Perusing's Appraisers on Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Michael Hobbs, and I'm excited to have Mitchell with us for this episode. Mitchell, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Michael, thanks for having me. Excited to be on the Appraisers on Purpose podcast and having a great conversation today.
Man, it's going to be great. And it's so great that you all need to go ahead and do what only you can do, because only 38% of you that listen actually subscribe. So be generous and go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Send out the positive vibes out in the internet verse, as well as you're going to like this episode. So definitely make sure to click on the like button as well. But more importantly, Mitchell, we're very curious. We want to know, were you born this way, or how did you get into the appraisal and valuation profession?
I would say I probably started out with a little more of a non-traditional path to appraisal, despite graduating with a real estate appraisal degree. So
what? Wait, you can do that? People can actually graduate with a real estate appraisal degree?
You can, yeah.
No way.
I see that it's atypical because it seems so many appraisers fall into the appraisal profession either as a second career or completely unknown coming out of college. But so I started college my senior year of high school, actually, and it was framing houses. This was in the early 2000s. The residential home building boom was occurring. Loved framing, but I started I was going to be an engineer. And I took 2 cracks at calculus, failed them both. I had to drop out both times. Oh, no. And I always say it was the best thing that happened to me, because I just probably wouldn't have made it very long or very far as an engineer. Yeah. And so I was sitting there my second year of college wondering, what am I going to do? And a buddy told me, I like construction. A buddy told me, hey, check out the real estate program. They happen to have a real estate program at St. Cloud State in Minnesota.
St. Cloud State. Yeah, they got a great statistics program as well.
Yeah, and so I dove into that, started taking the classes. Lo and behold, they have specific appraisal classes. Took the residential appraisal class. Really liked it. They had an independent study for commercial appraisal. Took that class. And first job out of college was as an appraiser down in Phoenix, Arizona, actually.
Holy cow, you went from St. Cloud down to Phoenix.
Yeah, I had a dream I wanted to try living outside of the state, and I had a great opportunity to start my career down there. It was in 2005, the year home prices went up 50% in one year.
Goodness gracious.
I was on the commercial side, but the market was very healthy, very hot. And I lasted one summer down there. The summer heat melted me, and met my wife down there. She was from Minnesota, and we moved back to Minnesota.
Wow. There were actually 2 of you in Phoenix at that time, not just one of you.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow. What an experience. So you graduated. So this is fascinating. I've never talked. Never? I'm going to go with never. If I'm wrong, it's okay. Someone who actually graduated with a degree in appraisal. I've heard about people that actually graduated with like maybe a degree in real estate or real estate finance, but you actually graduate with a degree in appraisal. You go right into the profession, and we've heard some people have done that before. You go to a new market, Phoenix, and what type of properties did you start appraising?
I had a good exposure right out of the gate. It was with a national appraisal firm, and the local leadership was a father-son team with well over 50 years of experience, a lot of it in litigation. So it started with the basics, the single tenant industrial, but quickly morphed into retail, big box retail. We got involved in some complicated land assignments and some office buildings. But in that first year, the father, who was in his 70s at the time, spent considerable time training me. Like, he was in that phase of his career where he could see I was interested and committed to learning, and he would just sit down, and he taught me so much in that first year. I've often said I feel like looking back that first year, I gained 4 or 5 years of experience just
That's amazing.
learning how to think through expenses on an income bill or when you're analyzing an income stream. Like what
Yes.
kind of expenses make sense for a 10,000 foot building as opposed to a 100,000 foot building. Verifying. Like I have stories of a few of the scenarios where I learned how to verify comps at a very high level early on.
Well, that's great. What amazing training.
Yeah. That was instrumental to really help and propel my career, I feel like.
Absolutely. To get that type of support, grounding, as well as encouragement.
Yeah. And it was demanding too, right? Like they did
Really?
a lot of litigation work and
Mhm.
like you had to be on your A game, learn how to be a true professional.
What a great start. I was listening to, I think it was the Be Invictus YouTube channel, some of my early morning listening in and around working out. And it was a fascinating quote. And I'm going to get it wrong, but it summarizes exactly what you said. And that is, and I can't remember which famous person said it. It's, you're going to look back and you're going to look back on your 20s and you're either going to say that you underperformed in living your life or you underperformed in your profession, but you're going to underperform in one area or the other.
Sure.
And the flip side of that is when you get that type of thorough and even intense early training, what an amazing foundation to come into this industry.
Yeah. Really is powerful. And for whatever reason, from an early age, I had aspirations of business ownership.
Oh, really?
And
Did you have that in your family or in your community or?
No, I come from my dad was a truck driver, blue collar community. And
Yeah.
I always enjoyed, even as a kid, when we had family and friends over, I remember sitting as a kid on the floor listening.
Yep.
Like when the business owners that were friends with my dad would come over, something just I was always fascinated and curious how they were talking and what they were talking about. And then I had the people I worked with growing up, great mentors, right?
Mm-hmm.
They always taught me a lot. And I just always appreciated what they committed and gave to me as far as opportunity.
Yeah.
And then my aunt Rita, who I worked for many years growing up in high school and into college,
Yes.
she sent me to see Zig Ziglar at age 19.
Really?
At Target Center in Minneapolis.
You got to see Zig live?
Yeah. That was a real treat. It really opened my eyes to create bigger dreams and fulfilling on them.
That's amazing. Wow. Good for you. So you get this opportunity to see a legend.
Yeah, truly.
When he was still alive and go on from there and get that exposure. And you have this sense of what to be. Wow. So you mentioned he was towards the end of his career. He sees this eager and energetic young person in you, and yet you only made it a year. Was that kind of like a divorce? It feels it must have been tough having such a great relationship and then melting in the heat and then having to go back and basically freeze in Minnesota.
Yeah, it was tough, right? Like I saw what they were willing to commit to me and the opportunity they were opening up, but it was really more of a personal choice at that point. Like my wife and I were about to be married, and I just knew long term, like I wanted to be up in Minnesota at that time. And so I was able to transfer to Minnesota, stay with the same national firm.
Okay.
And spent 6 years there working with 4 different MAIs, which broadened my knowledge and exposure to financing, a lot of right-of-way and condemnation work, various litigation, some exposure to property tax appeal. So that, again, it was like building that foundation.
An amazing foundation. Yeah, I love that. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. And just tackling some challenging assignments and being willing to raise my hand and commit to projects that weren't very easy and neat to solve valuation problems.
Absolutely. That's I was going to go back. I was curious about in Phoenix, obviously, when it carried over when you came back, it sounds like you were able to develop more of a general approach towards commercial appraising versus we only appraised senior living facilities of 70 units or more that also dealt with memory care. Like you weren't, it wasn't as narrow, it was much broader is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I feel I've always heard of the people that specialize in a specific property type or a specific niche, a segment, say tax appeal or financing. But
Yes.
my experience, I just like with appraisal, I like the intellectual curiosity and stimulation of tackling different property types. You're learning a lot of different projects. And so, yeah, I feel like I got exposure to a lot of property types, a lot of the different purposes for
Yes.
these appraisals. And
Yes.
so that just, again, it creates a good foundation, but then you start to see what interests you, and then other areas that maybe you don't want to spend as much time on as well.
No, I totally appreciate that. That is fascinating. And was your first year primarily more, we'll call it behind the desk work, or was it out in the field kind of work? How did that go for you?
Down in Phoenix?
Yes, down in Phoenix.
Yeah, so I think, if I remember correctly, the first 3-4 months, so I graduated with the real estate appraisal degree, which really helped. Like,
Yeah,
I was actually really impressed and surprised at how much my college education helped specific to the appraisal profession. And I helped a handful of appraisers over the first 3-4 months on basic front end type product, right? Verifying comps, writing up local regional area type analysis. But then I think by month 3 or 4, they handed me a folder and a property address and said, attack it. And so I still remember that first, it was a single tenant industrial building. I think it took me 100 hours to do that first one.
It always takes forever on the first one.
2.5 weeks. And no one makes money on it, but the next one is like, okay, get it down to 80 hours and 60 hours, and pretty soon you're cranking away and starting to actually catch a little bit of a rhythm. So I feel like, again, I think part of it was the mentorship, the training.
Yeah.
I was interested and committed, and I've always been obsessed with like how can I be more productive and efficient?
Sure.
It's just, I don't know why, but it's been a driver for me.
Sure.
And so it's like, how can you continually elevate and improve your craft? Because obviously with appraisal, if you're on the fee appraisal side,
Yeah.
it ultimately creates more opportunity the more efficient and productive you are.
Absolutely. Yeah. I totally.
Without cutting corners.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that. And again, your background, as I heard you say, was with a professional that was doing litigation. And there's a different level of scrutiny in those reports.
Absolutely.
And if it's for, say, bank work versus if it's for a private individual. And there's something to be said for tuning the report and the results. The results are the results, but like tuning that report so that it meets the needs of the client and maybe the timing and or the fee structure.
Yeah.
And so that makes sense. And I've found it's always easier to do the most difficult stuff first, because then you have room to move around. Versus if you start with the easiest stuff, sometimes after a while, you're kind of like, oh, that next step to get to that next level, that's such a big step. You're like,
Yeah. And if you're accustomed to doing a certain level, and all of a sudden you're stepping into the more complicated type projects, it requires a mental shift, but then it's just the actual physical part of what are you producing? What's the end product look like? And then be able to think through to the back end. If I'm on stand testifying today in tax court or in a condemnation hearing, like being able to anticipate those questions, and those were from day one of my career,
yes,
those were the questions being asked of me. I still remember a comp that I had to verify. It was for a litigation assignment. It was a corner land sale.
Yep.
I called the broker, had the basic generic questions you run by him, and that wasn't enough. So I called him again. Still wasn't enough. I called him a third time, and I was getting challenged, I think, by my boss. But then finally I threw up my hands. He said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to find his address. I'm going to drive over to his office right now.
Love it.
And I'm going to get the details." And I did.
Yeah.
And no, I don't think I've done that since, but basically what it taught me is I'm going to get under the hood, and sometimes you have to be that detective.
Yes.
And really understand some of these challenging transactions that do occur.
I love that. I am thrilled to hear about that level of tenacity and thoroughness that you possess. And it doesn't mean that because other people may not possess that, they're any less of a professional. But when you look at the work and you look at what your results rely upon, thoroughness and validation go an awful long way.
Yeah. And obviously, is that everyday norm? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But at times, if the stakes are high and if there's a need to discover, like if you get really curious and relentless, like you can find really good information and asking good questions,
Mm-hmm.
and it pays off on the back end.
Oh, that's fantastic. So you said your opportunity came about because you did join a national firm and therefore you relocated from Phoenix back to Minnesota working with large firm. Did you still stay more of a generalist in commercial, or did you start to move towards a particular asset class, which is not uncommon in larger firms?
No, I like over the 6 years I was in Minneapolis with the national firm, I stayed, it was a very broad mix of financing, property tax appeal, right-of-way work, other litigation matters. We got into this through the market downturn, the Great Recession, did a ton of residential failed subdivisions.
Oh, really?
And we covered the main food groups: office, retail, industrial, multifamily, and a lot of land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What asset types were you finding in the early years of your career that you were drawn towards?
I would say probably industrial. I've always been fascinated with industrial properties. I think they're the neatest properties to inspect, like getting inside of some of those buildings, the manufacturing facilities. It's amazing what you just take for granted everyday items that we all use, but to see how they're made, how they're manufactured, the complexity of all the equipment, it's just really interesting. And then office buildings, I find it interesting, different office buildings. You have such a wide spectrum of quality and appeal. And really, you see that more today than ever, just in terms of the haves and the have-nots in office space.
Oh, that's amazing. Because I so relate to that experience. It's I'm sitting here, somebody makes this Yeti mug, and one, big fan, love the double wall cylinder and its capability. It's like, why didn't somebody come up with that sooner? But to actually be in a facility where those things get manufactured, especially at scale, the high volume, continuity of from raw material to finished product, and that precision and the quality control that goes into it. I'm like, that is so not appraisal. It's almost like Van Gogh-ish kind of work at times, it seems.
Exactly. More recently, I've been doing a lot of big box retail valuation work for property tax appeals. And that's like a whole nother fascinating part. Like you go into a big box store, you're grocery shopping, you're looking for some goods. You just see the column. You don't see any of the storm. Like you just go to the shelf, you pull something off the shelf. It's right there at your fingertips, but you start understanding everything that's going on behind the closed doors. And you think of the logistics of retail, just in time inventory. The shelves are all stocked. Typically the quality of the food is there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You just take it for granted on the everyday basis, but just to realize how many moving parts there are for that ability for the everyday citizen to just go grab that item off the shelf.
Yes.
I think is really neat to see and understand that more.
Man, I totally agree with you. That is phenomenal. That's phenomenal. So did you start buying industrial buildings along the way?
Not industrial, no. First real estate investment actually was in 2016, was a mobile home park, but we acquired it through the real estate business. Or like I started appraising mobile home parks probably in 2014. I think was my first one. And just, again, staying curious, but I was always fascinated at the returns. This was before I feel like manufactured home parks were really an attractive asset class.
Yes.
They weren't as mainstream as what you hear about now.
Yes.
And I appraised a handful of them, and I couldn't believe like the cash they were generating at the time. Man. Like high cap rates, selling at 10 cap rates at the time or whatever they were. And so I started looking at them, and then it just so happened we were appraising a mobile home park in southern Minnesota, and
Yeah.
doing our due diligence, verifying the rent comp data, verifying sale comp data, and had a great conversation with the seller or with a property owner of a competitor. And at the end, we probably talked for an hour, and he shared, or at the end, I said, "Hey, if you're ever in the market to sell, give me a call."
Okay.
3 months later, he was 82 at the time. I get a call, and he said, "Hey, I'm looking to sell." He'd been
No
getting letters
way.
and flyers all the time from people, but we built that rapport.
Yep.
And 3 months later, we had our under contract and purchase. It was a small deal, but got in the game, and it was really good because it taught me so much about, yes, we're appraisers, but that's one aspect of an entire deal, an entire transaction. So to go from finding, acquiring, managing a deal, finding the financing, like all of those steps,
Yes.
it makes you a better appraiser. You understand the different moving parts at a whole nother level.
I amen to that, Mitchell. I couldn't agree with you more. But more importantly, kudos to you for actually applying your skills in the marketplace. I joke with people all the time, and they're like, "Oh, hey, I've got an appraisal of a property." I'm like, "Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Can I talk to the appraiser?" And they're like, "What? Yeah, sure." And I'm like, "Hey, I got your appraisal here. Somebody gave it to me." They're like, "Okay, great." They're like, "Are you my client?" I'm like, "No, but I'm looking at acquiring your client's property." Like, "Okay, and you have a very pretty report." I said, "How confident are you in the results?" So like, so I did the work and I signed the price. I said, "Great." I said, "Are you confident enough to buy the property?"
Yeah.
That's always my test. I'm like, if you're not
Sure.
confident enough to buy the property, you don't believe in the results.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're building like $1 billion data center or $10 billion data centers or subdivision analysis. I'm like, look, if the stuff is good, you'd be willing to put your money where your mouth is and not just sign your signature. And I totally respect your perspective. And some people are totally going to throw some heat on that. They're like, I disagree. That's why you don't own stuff. And
I would push back on that some.
I love that. I love the pushback.
Yeah. And the reason I would push back is, again, to acquire any type of property, like you have to raise your kind of mental thermostat to actually get yourself in a position to. I had to acquire a lot of new skills to get myself mentally prepared to actually own real estate as opposed to like valuing it. And if you haven't put in that work, some people can seemingly more naturally do it, but it is like a big leap, and there's a lot of layers and a lot of people you need to learn to talk to and communicate with to move from only valuing real estate to actually being an investor.
I totally agree. And yet, if you're going to be the one actually alongside the investor, the developer, the occupant, the owner, what have you, and you're doing all this research and analysis, it's like, look, do you believe in what you're doing or not?
Yeah.
No, I totally appreciate that. You bought a park. Was that the first of a huge assemblage?
No, we don't have. So what I discovered actually is I love business.
Yeah.
I love building businesses. And so I had bought it with my brother. He ended up moving out of state 3.5 years later. So it changed how we were managing it. So we ended up selling it. I rolled it into more of a passive investment in real estate.
Really?
But I discovered like property management does not give me energy. And I learned a lot. I'm glad I did it, but I'd rather invest more passively, focus on my business.
Sure.
And other opportunities.
Yeah.
So I'll probably get back into it at some point, but it would be it'd have to be a larger property where I'm not managing the daily.
Yeah.
And again, it's part of the whole journey of discovering what you like to do and where do you really want to excel.
No, I very much appreciate that. I think it's a great way to go. You've got the passive position. Is that something you just continue to do, is invest in other people's deals as they come up?
Yes.
Oh, love that. And who better to be able to make that decision than a guy like you?
I like to build. I'm not a risky investor. I don't like to invest in things I don't like understand at my gut level. And with real estate, I understand it.
Yes.
I mean, is every decision gonna pan out exactly how you want it to be? No, but at least I like to be able to sleep at night, have a peace of mind, and if I can invest in something where I at least understand the value when I'm making the investment, if things are managed in a prudent manner, it should play out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to go about it. What type of assets have you invested in along the way?
I've done the manufactured home park space, as I mentioned, more retail and land development
Really?
opportunities as well.
Wow.
Again, in more of a passive investment
Sure.
side.
What was it about those investment opportunities that drew you to them?
80% of all businesses fail within 5 years, according to the US Census Bureau. With so many roles and responsibilities that must be managed and have nothing to do with appraisal reports, is it any surprise that it's hard to keep up, much less having a sense of peace, stability, and profitability that comes from growing your business? Given all of this, you might already be thinking about exiting your business one day. Don't miss the limited opportunity to work with Michael, a real estate expert and professional coach. He has worked with more than 300 owners and entrepreneurs to find their highest and best use by solving problems that reach their most important goals. Compress decades of learning into days by working with Michael. Michael is famous in real estate and business coaching. With his help, you can accelerate your growth, increase your quality of life, and earn more money, all while ultimately doing less. Michael helps you not just grow your business, but also find new purpose in it and in your life. If you're ready to take control instead of being controlled, contact him on LinkedIn or email him at michaelh@paru.com.
It was just a combination of the access of rolling some money into a development, knowing the players behind it, and just having that comfort level with kind of their plan for the project and then the people behind it.
Got it. Spoken like a true banker who's going to lend some money into the transaction, but you were on the equity side of the equation. Oh, phenomenal. And was it land development? Was it land development residential, or was it land development of industrial?
Land development retail, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Tell us about it. Just give us a little high level overview.
It was so I was rolling money from a 401k in that instant. It was like a fund, basically, right?
Yes.
So I wasn't like a direct investor, just to be clear.
Yeah.
It was very much a passive investment. And
Got
so
it.
then pretty much the return, I knew what kind of return I was going to be getting. And it's been essentially hands off in that regard.
Nothing wrong with that. But you had a strong enough sense of what was going on to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is phenomenal. And as you had that opportunity, you mentioned a little over a half decade working with a national firm there in the Minnesota area. You also had referenced earlier in life, you had this sense of wanting to be in the owner entrepreneur box, which is not always the same as being in the appraiser box. How did those come together, and what prompted you ultimately to leave the large national firm?
Yeah, so I got my MAI designation, I think, at age 29. And
Wow, nice.
at that same time, I was networking, building my own network with the idea that at some point I wanted to be able to generate my own client base.
Yeah.
And so in 2012, an opportunity opened up with a local small appraisal company where I was able to join forces. And from 2012 through 2018, I became a partner in that local firm and
Got it.
grew that company and just really poured into. I think when I started my first year, I had 2 clients that were like 90% of my business, 2 banks, right?
Okay.
Served them really well. But over the course of time, continued to network and build up additional relationships, a lot of coffee meetings, a lot of lunches. And then I think we've talked off the record, like using social media too, right?
Yeah.
And as I started using more social media, that gave me introductions and opportunities to go speak with a handful of real estate offices, brokerages, some banks, a few different Minnesota Banking Association events across the state of Minnesota. And that was all through sending out education-based content through newsletters and social media, which to me, I find it just fascinating and pretty remarkable what can open up when you're providing good education-based content.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And to give us a sense of your early involvement in social media, where were you at in your career? Were you still working for the larger firm at that time, or had you gone to work with this smaller firm and started that trajectory?
Yeah, so I think I started my first, I opened up a LinkedIn account, I think in 2009. 2010, I was involved in the NIAP Real Estate Development Association as a volunteer, again, trying to build up a network of people in the real estate industry. Joined a committee, and for whatever reason, I remember we started using LinkedIn to promote the monthly breakfast meetings, things of that nature. I think it was on the communications committee. And so then
Okay.
from that was way back. That's 15 years ago, hard to believe. But from that, I realized I started sharing real estate articles I was reading in the Business Journal,
Yeah.
Finance and Commerce, the Sarge, local newspapers, just anything real estate related that I found interesting. I would read it and share it and add my own little perspective as a real estate valuation guy. And that was the start of my journey on social media. And it was working.
I love that. That is
Yeah.
fantastic. And back then, we're talking over a decade and a half ago, which in dog years means the dog's dead. But when we look at that human years, like 15 years, and like when LinkedIn started, and how much more both accessible, but at the same time different the communications were then. Here you are doing something that was of interest to you, and you just happen to be sharing it,
Yeah.
and it struck a chord.
Yeah. In that same time, I went on my own with a local partner in 2012. I started investing in other business classes because as all of a sudden you get into the ownership side, a whole other world of challenges and problems you have to deal with and learn and understand. Right?
Yes.
Moving from the employee side. So I started investing in different business development or just business knowledge classes to avoid some of those painful moments. And
Sure.
there was one class I took, it was called Guerrilla Business School.
Really?
It was like a 4 or 5 day intense event out in California, but I still remember they talked about breaking your business into your operations, your sales and marketing,
Sure.
and then your admin functions, right?
Yes.
And just getting really intentional on consistent marketing. And so I've just always committed to that because it works. I'd rather have more opportunity and have the ability to say no than be scrounging for the bottom looking for opportunity.
Yeah.
At that time, after that class, I invested in working with someone to help really start to develop good education-based content through our company email newsletter.
Oh, really?
And that was that compounded the social media aspect.
Got it.
Yeah, it
Love
was good.
that.
Yeah.
Man, that is really encouraging to hear. And have you maintained that communication approach, or was that kind of like a nice idea for a year or two and then it fell off?
No, I've continued to maintain it. And social media, 15 years ago, no one was creating content on social media, or very few. So it was easy to stand out. But then the amount of information available to us today, it just continues to proliferate and expand. So I feel like at times we're inundated with too much information, right?
Yes.
And so as that happened, what I started to do, I started to get bored just sharing specific real estate information because it feels like it just gets lost in the sea of sameness.
Yes.
And now with AI, people can generate articles and content pretty quick, but it gets pretty generic and dull, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
So I'm always thinking, how can you pivot and zig while everyone is zagging? And so I honestly now share more of the things that interest me, whether it's health related, business, family. Comes down to people do business with those they know and trust. And the more I do that, it continues to feed and grow the appraisal business as well.
Absolutely love that, man. That is what a phenomenal kind of experience. And given that naturally we can just tell through the interaction with you, your sense of being about the business as well as being about appraisal. Michael Gerber was revolutionary when he came out and talked about the E-Myth. and that whole idea that most people are technically proficient, and that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But just because you're a phenomenal plumber doesn't mean that you leave the plumbing firm you work for and go buy a magnet and put it on the side of your truck and suddenly you're operating as a business. No, you're just a person who's running around collecting jobs. You basically bought yourself a job.
Yeah.
And if you don't put the systems in place, as you made reference to, then it gets, I mean, one, it gets lonely, and two, it gets really hard because you're wearing so many more hats now.
It turns a good job into a very complicated job with a pretty crazy boss yourself, right?
Exactly. That crazy boss?
Yeah. And so it's, unless my experience, like living it firsthand, it's easy to just, pretty soon you're working around the clock seemingly. All of a sudden you have more opportunities and you have a few more people to work with you. But if you don't have the right systems and the right thinking, the strategies, it just gets so difficult to stay ahead of the curve and feel like you're actually winning versus survival. And I have a life outside of work. Like I love working, but my philosophy is work hard, play harder.
Yeah.
And we like to travel and I spend time with my kids and being outdoors, active.
Yes.
It's important, like especially on complex litigation jobs, to be able to break away and have a good, clear mental outlet.
Yes.
And the systemization of the business has really helped with that.
No, I think that's absolutely fantastic. And it doesn't matter what you do.
Exactly.
I was, where was I? Somebody needed some help. So I changed my schedule on Wednesday and I flew over to Detroit, and I was with the Detroit chapter of Entrepreneur Organization because one of my peers had an emergency and he couldn't lead the training that day. And I met this lady, I met Jocelyn, amazing business. And during COVID, she found that there was an interest in rare plants. Okay, I thought you just go to, I don't know, like the home improvement store and buy a plant for $20 in a pot, put it out. It turns out that there's a whole segment of people out there that love these rare plants. And by rare, that means they're going to spend hundreds of dollars for a plant. And if you go to rareplantfairy.com, you can see what I'm talking about. They are beautiful and vibrant and unlike anything I've seen. But I got to hear her story about how she literally started in her apartment back during COVID as a hobby, just for something to do amongst the job that she had. And it's turned into a multi-million-dollar business. And the main thing she attributes her success to is that early on, she just made sure she wasn't doing all the things she wasn't good at.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I'm terrible at, and having the humility and the discipline to identify those and then document those and then have someone else do it allowed me to stay focused on this very particular niche. And like you, she invested, because she loved it, so much time in social. And because she's on these social channels, like these people from literally around the world, she has a global clientele.
Wow.
And she was telling the story, I believe if I'm not mistaken, her highest price sale was $25,000 of a plant. I'm like, what?
Amazing? Yeah.
I'm like, dude, this is crazy. But it goes back to your point. She has a technical proficiency and she also had an understanding about what it meant not to just do that role, but also take on other opportunities to let her stay focused and help people be around her and achieve greater success.
Yeah. I think it's, especially like a lot of appraisers, right? Myself included, when I first started out, like you're so used to owning that appraisal, right?
Oh,
Cover to
absolutely.
cover, and learning to let go and empowering others. But then I started thinking of it as you get to a point where you can't take on any more work, right? If you don't develop the systems and the processes. So then I started thinking, well, all of these clients are calling me, they're a company, and I'm having to say no. I'm doing them a disservice, right? So how can I serve them at a higher level? How can I continue to elevate? And then that creates opportunity to bring on additional people to train them. I think appraisal, there's so much opportunity. There's a lot of the intellectual stimulation that you can create on. Last week, we're doing a big power line transmission project right now on the landowner side, and meeting with the landowners, like farmers, right?
Yes.
they're farming well over 10,000 acres. It's a massive operation.
That's a significant operation.
And I was drinking from a fire hose for 2 hours, like learning and understanding all their pain points and all
Sure.
of that. And I was asking questions specific to the valuation side, but
Yep.
that's fascinating, right? But
Yeah.
to be able to serve that kind of work, like you need to add other people and skills so I can focus on the things I do best.
Yeah. Love that. Wow. What a great opportunity and connection point for you. The thing that I also appreciate though is a lot of people got exposed to things, but not everybody follows up and keeps following up. A lot of people are great starters,
Yeah.
myself included. Not everyone's great continuers or great finishers. And as I've heard you talked about both LinkedIn, I heard you mention, I thought you said at the age of 19, you got to go see Zig Ziglar.
Yeah.
And then a little further along, you went and participated in, did you say a 5-day program for guerrilla marketing? Which,
Yeah.
you know,
Guerrilla business, all
Guerrilla
things business. Yeah.
yeah. I'm like, amazing kind of stuff. What else have you done to develop yourself, not just as an appraiser?
A ton. Where do you want to start? So
Anywhere you want, man. We're following
just-
you on this yellow brick road.
to give you an idea, I went to see Zig Ziglar at 19. It
Yeah.
just opened my eyes to, like, at 8 o'clock in the morning, he was 76 and he had more energy than anyone I'd ever seen.
Wow.
He had 20,000 people just so fired up about life, and
Yes.
that did something for me. And then in college, I think my junior year, I got invited to spend 4 days in a condensed Dale Carnegie course.
Really?
Human communications, relationship course on
Wow.
had to get up in front of they were training like 6 new instructors over those 4 days.
Okay.
We had to give probably a dozen speeches in those 4 days. And I walked out of those on that Sunday after that event, like a completely different person. Cause it created a level of confidence,
Yeah.
new belief. Wow, what's possible, right? Just from communication. And so that was like the started setting goals, graduated with a big laundry list of goals from that class. And then, got into business. I'd say most of my 20s on more of the technical side, getting my MAI designation.
Yeah.
On the appraisal side, building that skill set. And then for me, going out and drumming up new business and whatnot, awkward and uncomfortable for me at first. But
Tell me about it, man.
like anything, if you continue to create the skill set to do it, learning
Yeah.
marketing, how to communicate, how to expand your reach, email marketing, went to these classes in California learning just all things business. I went to 3 or 4 of them that really just helped create a foundation. And then as the business grows, you start to run into new challenges, right? How do you manage team members? And
Yep.
so I spent 2 years working with a Tony Robbins coach, just really
wow.
shifting from being a business operator to a business owner. A lot of it's more like your daily psychology of your thinking, and then
Yeah.
obviously executing, taking action on what's important to change how you're operating. And then in 2022, up until 2022, my appraisal business, I'd been on my own for 10 years at that point. We did some litigation related work, but
Okay.
I'd say 80% was financing.
Yes.
And it was pretty easy. The market had been going up for a long time. I could pick and choose at that point, like which assignments were best for my appraisal staff.
Sure.
And then when interest rates started to really climb, the financing market, at least in our market, slowed down significantly. And I know I talked with other appraisers around the country, they were also impacted. So going back to 2009, the same thing had happened 13 years prior. Like the market had slowed down in the Great Recession. I vowed at that time, I was still an employee, but if there's ever another market downturn, the one thing I'm going to control is my activity level.
You spent some time around Tony Robbins, man. I can hear it.
Yeah. And so what I did in 2022, I started investing. I spent 3 years working with a mentor, Bo Eason, on storytelling
Okay.
and using speaking and stories to really connect with people. And the more
Yeah.
that I started training in that area, We also got more intentional about seeking out litigation type opportunities, property
Okay.
tax appeal.
Got
And
that.
that's like completely shifted our business. And now financing is, we still do finance work, but it's probably 20 to 30% of our business as compared to 80% previously. And that transformation has been really helpful for the appraisal business and just continuous growth.
Love that.
Yeah.
Wow. And how has that actually shown up in the results?
The results, we've been able to generate higher profitable jobs, larger portfolios. We went from one-off jobs to, I don't know, in the last 3 years, I can't remember how many, 10 to 25 property portfolios we've done, which all of a sudden you have 3 to 6 months of work for one or two appraisers.
It's fantastic.
And you can anticipate and look ahead further. And we're doing a lot of like complex litigation assignments, right? Now testifying more in court. And that's good opportunity. It's interesting work and it's challenging. We're doing a lot of corporate tax appeal work on big box retail right now. And that's been really good work as well. So it's opened up bigger opportunities that I wouldn't have imagined several years ago.
Love that. Love to hear that. I definitely appreciate you sharing that. And then how has that influenced your growth from the standpoint of the people that you invite to join you?
As far as the team?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think as we've shifted to more of a litigation type focus, right? It demands a higher caliber product. And we talked about it earlier, like the training required and expectations if someone's going to be testifying on stand. So we're just continuously, like, we've invested heavily in training on a weekly basis. Our team, like, a lot of it is around the mindset of what does what does elite appraisal work look like? And what does it require from you? How are you being? How are you showing up? And implementing a dialing for data training program for younger appraisers where it's hard, right? Learning to pick up the phone and call and confirm comps, but with the right mindset, the right training, just putting in the reps and training and practicing and rehearsing those kind of items, it can really give someone the confidence to move from being afraid to owning that aspect. I always say that confers a good appraiser into a great appraiser, the ability to pick up the phone and really understand what's happening.
Yep.
So then as we're recruiting, that's what we're looking for, people that are wanting to grow and learn, because I'm going to keep doing it as well.
That is phenomenal. And then is most of your growth coming through on the team side? Does that come through word of mouth or does that come through your social?
It's more recently, it's been through social, actually.
Really? Say a little more about that, because a lot of people, when we look at the stats, I think you and I are a little maybe more familiar with them than most.
Yeah.
When you look at the creation of content versus the consumption of content, it is vastly disproportionate in the sense of such a small minority of all the users are actually content creators versus content consumers.
Yeah. So I think that gives you an advantage, right? If you start creating and not many appraisers are creating content, like that's just the reality, right? And so like right now, we're actually looking to add a few team members, right?
Yes.
And so I'd made a LinkedIn video and I've started to talk more about what we're up to and what we're doing. And through one video, for instance, I got a handful of referrals to people interested in the appraisal profession, going through the interview process. And without that, I'm still reaching out to existing appraisers and planting seeds that way, right? But it broadens your reach and you can connect with people, and by sharing more of who you are and what you're up to and what drives you. I've had other conversations with appraisers that they're not in a position to change yet, but they might be looking for something new in the next 12 months.
Yeah.
So it's being able to have that conversation and just get to understand where they're at, what's driving them. And then they already know just through some of those conversations, like I could tell they've been studying and they've told me like they followed along what I'm up to, what our company is up to.
Love that.
So it builds that knowledge and trust factor again.
Yeah.
On a steady, ongoing basis.
Yeah, that is a big factor, and one that really influences people and transforms things.
Yeah.
That's amazing. You mentioned a little earlier that you work hard and play harder. And as someone who follows your content, and that's how you and I first got to know each other. It wasn't because I was so smart to be surrounded by intelligent and capable and accomplished professionals. That was because of LinkedIn.
Yeah. That's how
I appreciate that. No, I wouldn't have never known of you other than that. Maybe
Right.
would have been at some meeting or something.
Yeah.
And so how has that, share a little more for people to get a sense of how that continues to empower you and your family of the work hard, play harder?
Yeah. So we just actually made a big mid-career move. I'm 42 years old and we just moved from Minnesota to Montana.
Oh, that's a big move.
It's a big move. Yeah. And sold our house. We love traveling. We love being in the mountains. We've been going to Arizona every spring for several years. We actually work, like my company, we have a remote company and we don't actually have a physical office.
Okay.
And that was like pre-COVID. That was my decision at the time.
Yes.
I love working, but I'm also on the move and I don't want to be like stuck to one destination every day.
Yes.
And wherever I'm at, I'm going to be working most likely. But with that, we love to be active and outdoor in the mountains and fresh lakes and mountain bike and things of that nature. So again, like using social media as an example, I can create content wherever I am at, and that helps drive new business. It just you keep front of mind with people, right?
Yeah.
But then, we travel quite a bit, and I'm able to mix the appraisal inspections into those trips sometimes.
Yes.
And just weave it all together.
No, I love to hear that. When we were catching up a little earlier, you had shared about one of the portfolios and how you literally use that as a family vacation opportunity. I was totally moved by that. That was amazing.
Yeah. So that was actually going back to 2015. I was in Minnesota. We had an opportunity for an estate to appraise 19 retail stores across Minnesota, North Dakota, and Montana.
Yes.
And I had just started in 2012. So 3 years prior, working in North Dakota, Northwest, the oil Bakken area of Wilson, North Dakota.
Yes.
And, but I bid on the assignment. It was my biggest project ever at the time, 19 stores. And initially I got the assignment. I was like, wow, this is pretty neat. But then reality sets in. It's like, there's 5 stores out in Montana. That's going to require me being gone several days, a road trip through North Dakota and Montana. It's like you start looking at it doesn't seem as attractive, but then we had a motorhome at the time. So I mentioned it to my wife and we were like, what if we just they're retail stores, so I could just go in and stop in at any time, 9 to 5, right? And so we mapped out all of our stops. We said, we're going to turn it into a family trip too. And we turned a 4 or 5 day intense, boring, it had been a long, intense work trip, right? Boring, driving across North Dakota, things of that nature. But we turned into like 11-day stop. We stopped in Glacier National Park, Yellowstone, Bozeman Hot Springs. We stopped in all of those retail stores. We did my inspections. That's like an hour or two of the day, right?
Yes.
And we had a blast and it worked out for everyone. I'd get up at that time, because it was partly a work trip, get up before the kids were awake till 8:30 in the morning, get a few hours of work done. Then we had the whole day to play. And after that experience, I said, how can we do that more often?
Oh, love that.
And more consistently. Yeah.
And then what type of answers did you continue to find?
it works, right? If you can weave it in, like we've just continued to do it with, as a pretty extreme example. So we moved to Montana. I'm actually down in Florida today,
Love it.
but we left Montana about a week ago, and I had 3 inspections in North Dakota. So we took off. We have 11 kids. 8 of our kids were traveling with us, and I had 3 inspections in North Dakota. Spent the night on the road there, and then we spent a couple days in Minnesota. Had a lot of, I think, 6 or 7 more inspections.
Yeah.
So we do homeschool, so that allows for that. But I don't know, it creates, we can travel with our kids. They're learning about different aspects. They get to see a lot of new country, and then we came down here to visit my in-laws and whatnot. But it's just a matter of weaving it all together. For me, that works. Maybe that's not for everyone, but
Yeah.
I guess the key that I see in with appraisals, like if you like to travel, if you like to be outdoors, like just build it into your work life as well. And that's what I've seen, like over the last 5 years. I've seen a lot of good established appraisers actually exit the industry, and I think they're burnt out from the everyday grind of just cranking away on appraisals. And if you can step away from the daily grind, you can play and integrate it more versus either or. It creates a little more flow and I think a healthier rhythm.
Oh, what a difference it makes. Like you said, when you have that integration, some people these days say it's not about work-life balance because that doesn't really exist. It's more about work-life integration. And I very much hear that in what you're sharing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big believer in that integration piece.
Yes.
And mixing it all together.
Oh, absolutely phenomenal. Wow. Given everything that you've experienced and everything you've learned and everything that you're aware of, what are you looking forward to or optimistic about over the next 3 to 5 years?
I'm actually really excited for continuing to grow the appraisal business right now. We have some incredible opportunities. We have opportunities to expand some of our work with some clients into a multi-state regional practice.
Oh, that's great.
And so I'm just, as we've elevated our client base and working on some really fun, interesting assignments, if I can bring on the right people to that growth, I think there's some incredible opportunities with it. Can mix that travel piece into it as well.
Yes.
And I just see the demand for good appraisers. Yes, there's AI. Yes, we're using AI, artificial intelligence where we can.
Yeah.
There's always like the pressure on the bank financing side, and I get that, both from the bank perspective and kind of the appraiser perspective of fee compression, short turn times. But I see a whole world of opportunity in tax appeal and right-of-way work, and people are begging for us or for appraisers and people who are willing to testify on a stand.
Yeah.
I was not 20 years ago. I wasn't that guy. But if you invest,
People are not. Come on.
But if you're willing to raise your hand to new opportunities, skill development. I'm going to New Jersey next week for the condemnation course through the Appraisal Institute to knock off that 3-part professional litigation development series. If you keep investing in the opportunities and saying yes, I think it just creates continuous opportunity and growth to keep on expanding.
Love that. No, I think that's fantastic. Are you a member of, I think it's pronounced FEWA, F-E-W-A?
I am not. Is that, or are you thinking IRWA?
Nope. It's so Jim Goodrich, an MAI down in Texas, had told me about it. That's the Forensic Expert Witness Association.
Okay, I actually have never heard of it. I'll have to look
If you're making the effort and taking the 3-part coursework, definitely recommend you look into that.
Yeah,
because that's all about expert witnesses connecting with each other because they have relationships and those relationships have different needs, and it's great to be connected with people that are doing that similar kind of work. And it's think about anything where there's a lawsuit, there's experts.
Yeah, definitely.
our conversations are always, or almost always, around real estate related topics, but there's so many topics.
There are.
Just something you might want to take a look at.
I'll definitely look into that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Man, Mitchell, I just appreciate you spent a little bit of time and sharing us a little perspective and insight into not only how you've been able to maintain this work hard, play harder approach towards life and business, but also how you've really invested and developed yourself to put yourself in a position that people are wanting you to be in more places because they want to work with you and your team. It's such a different approach versus people just chasing the lowest fee. So encouraging. So encouraging.
Yeah, no, I think it's, if you can adopt that mindset, it just, then you're getting to work on the types of projects and being more intentional, right? It allows you to do better work, which is of greater value to the client. It's greater value to yourself and to your employees versus just picking anything that comes your way. It's good for the entire industry and really elevates the entire industry as a whole.
Totally agree. Man, really appreciate it. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Perusing's Appraisers on Purpose podcast. We really do get a strong sense of how on purpose you are.
Michael, really appreciate joining you, and thanks for the opportunity.
Hey, you're welcome, buddy. You're welcome. You have a fantastic day. Friends, thanks for listening. Thanks for your continuing to pay it forward and share the wealth and share the love. And as you heard Mitchell touch on, it's such a great opportunity, whether it's this, whether it's your own efforts, whether it's social media, whether it's following him, to continue to expand both the presence and the impact of all the work that we do. And we appreciate you. Have a fantastic day.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Perusing's Appraisers on Purpose. We hope you enjoyed learning from the amazing professional paths and achievements of our beloved guests. Before we go, please subscribe on your listening channel, Spotify, LinkedIn, YouTube, and other podcast channels to hear more from appraisers and valuers regarding their life and their work. After you drop a comment below, who is one friend and peer you can generously share this episode with? If you have any suggestions or questions for future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. Just send us a message on LinkedIn and we'll be sure to get back to you. Thanks again for listening, and until we're together again for the next session of Perusing's Appraisers on Purpose, create the change that you seek.